What is your favorite argument for God's existence and why?
So my favorite argument for God's existence is that I believe in free will. Okay. The reason that I think this is an argument for God's existence is because if you believe that human beings are essentially just balls of meat wandering around aimlessly in the universe, the kind of Spinoza's stone that thinks that it was moving of its own accord, but actually was thrown.
Okay. So we're heading down. This is all very rapid fire. Ben Shapiro thinks that free will, and hopefully he'll get to it, in what sense he means that free will is evidence for God. And he's saying that if you apparently counter to his free will arguments are people who thinks that we are meatballs, that humans are balls of meat wandering around, just thinking that we've been thrown, thinking that we're moving when really we've been thrown. That actually is generally my position, and it's tough to argue against that, really. We are balls of meat kind of wandering around, whether or not you think there's free will, wandering around, moved by forces beyond us in some ways. Obviously, our genetic forces, the events around us, what's happening. In some ways, we're moving around this earth in ways that we don't fully control. So, okay, Ben, but all right, free will. Oh, and there's a puppy. How does this get us to God, Ben?
You believe that and you don't believe in free will, then there's an internal coherence and logic to it. If you believe that you have the ability to make independent choices, that you can actually supersede your own your own biological drives and the environment around you to any extent, even to this.
So Ben is using a definition of free will that is foreign to what I would call free will and very different than most people say it. So Ben's putting forth that if you have the ability to choose something that overcomes or is in counter to your normal biological impulses and the environment around you, he believes that means you're exercising free will. The trouble with that, or one problem with that, is that, of course, in overcoming that, are you not utilizing biological impulses to overcome it? At what point is your overcoming, like, let's say you're very, very hungry, and there's food in front of you, but you wait because of social conventions, you need to wait. At what point are you saying that controlling yourself is not also biological? Because of course it is. Your brain is the one doing those things. So doing that in and of itself, making choices, isn't what tells us whether or not we have meaningful free will. Meaningful free will is the ability to have chosen otherwise. Basically, the idea is if you went back in time to the exact moment, at that exact second, with everything exactly the same, the thought you just had is exactly the same, the temperature of the room is exactly the same, everything, whether your dog is barking is exactly the same, could you possibly have made a different choice under those exact circumstances? And that is a thing that has yet to be demonstrated really in any kind of meaningful way, that we actually have free will in that kind of way. And if we don't have free will in that kind of sense, then you can affirm a sort of a deterministic worldview where all of our choices are ultimately determined by the various inputs in our lives, our brain chemistry, all the external factors that go into our decisions. So, and again, that doesn't need a God then. All you need is the first domino to fall, as it were, and then all the dominoes afterwards can fall as they were going to. So, no, Ben, just the fact that I can sometimes make a choice that goes against my biological impulse, like perhaps I don't eat ice cream, or perhaps I eat exercise when I didn't want to, or I endure some pain for a short period of time because that's the polite thing to do, or, whatever. That doesn't mean we have free will. That just means we made a choice. All right, but carry on. Let's see. How does this prove God, Ben? How does it prove it?
Smallest extent. This means that you believe in something that can't actually be proved by science, but that you are living every single day. And the notion that you have that will, and not only that you have that will, but that will is capable of comprehending the universe around you, that your will is sort of your ideas, your ability.
Hold on. You're jumping ideas very fast here, Ben, and maybe it's because it's a YouTube short and it's compressed. I don't know. Okay, so you went from this free will that you made choices that you live as if it's free, which I agree. We all live as if we're making choices in some kind of meaningful way as our own entity, even if deep down we know that it's somewhat deterministic. But it still takes into account, of course, the personality and everything we've learned up to this point. Like, it's personal. That doesn't mean it's free in his sense. But then he jumped to, but what if that being can also comprehend a universe? Well, I don't see how that is a point in favor of a God either. because, of course, things can comprehend the universe without God existing. We can build cameras that comprehend the universe in their own unique sense. If there is a universe, if there is a reality that something is comprehending it, does not require a designer. An undesigned universe could also be comprehended. So you're not actually adding anything to your cumulative case here, Ben. You're just throwing stuff against the wall.
To comprehend the universe is a reflection of a reality, of an objective truth that is out there that says to
Again, you don't need a God to have an objective truth be out there. If reality can be an objective measure and truth is the extent to which a proposition conforms to reality as adjudicated by predictive power, that works equally well for a design universe and an undesigned universe. So you're not actually providing evidence for one or the other. You're just saying properties of the universe we observe.
me that there is a God there's a common source that stands behind that objective truth and stands behind the mind that can comprehend that truth.
Okay. So he's just, if we're making free will choices, and if somehow we can comprehend that a real universe is real, in whatever sense that it's real, Ben says we need, therefore, to have a God behind it. He doesn't say why. He doesn't point to anything in his worldview that works better with a God than without a God. He ultimately just came to say, hey, my intuition is that consciousness and free will and reasoning makes me feel like there should be a God. So therefore it's evidence for God. Or did I mishear him? Did I misread him? I don't think he said anything in that 60 seconds. Even moves the needle towards a God existing, even if we fully grant it, which I don't on the free will part. And the rest is just saying that the universe is comprehensible. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the thoughts, in the comments, your thoughts. Did Ben convince you that free will is a good argument for God? I don't think he did.